For years, everybody thought that Vivian Vance signed a contract to gain weight solely for the purpose of making Lucy appear thinner. But all that was a rumor. Lucy fabricated it as a party joke, and in some way or another, the world was convinced for years. The actual reality of what went on behind the cameras was much more sinister. Vivian endured in ways that nobody realized. She went to work with black eyes. She disliked her co-star so intensely that when he passed away, she toasted with champagne. The business attempted to hide these facts for decades. But now all that she wanted the world to hear is finally being released. Vivian Jones was born on July 26th of 1909 in Cherryhill, Kansas. Her childhood residence was not full of songs and stories. It was governed by strict Methodist guidelines and a mother who felt that acting was something immoral. Her mother told her that acting would land her in hell. Vivian was the second of 6, but she always felt like an outsider within her own family. Her natural desire for entertaining conflicted with her mother's doctrines, and each time she displayed her spark, it was immediately stifled. Her mother didn't merely disapprove of acting. She thought that it was evil. This created a battle within the home where Vivian's spirit continuously attempted to emerge but was continually compelled to stoop. That tension became part of her, and it would haunt her for years. When Vivian was 6, her family moved to Independence, Kansas. That's where her fire truly lit up. She started sneaking out at night, not for fun, but for freedom. She wanted to perform. She wanted to sing, to dance, to be on stage, even if her mother believed it was wrong. At school, she found someone who didn't judge her dreams. Her life was changed by a drama teacher, Anna Engelman, who gave her room to express herself. Vivian began cheerleading, participated in beauty pageants, and even attended school with a boy by the name of William Ing, who later became a renowned playwright. But life remained the same at home. Her family continued to try and crush her spirit. The more she performed, the more her mother resisted. Friends began referring to her as Viv, perhaps because it was freer, lighter, not bound to the existence she was seeking to abandon. Then came the life-changing moment. She shed her family surname. She ceased to be Jones and took on being Vivian Vance. She named Vance after a fellow named Vance Randolph who gathered old folk tales. Perhaps she identified with them. Wild, free, daring to be different from what others perceived. She ran away from Kansas to Tulsa, pursuing stages while her family continued without her. She was not running away. She was severing the tie. She was no longer her mother's daughter. She belonged to herself now. At the age of 21 in 1930, she was one of the earliest performers at a little venue called the Albuquerque Little Theater. She acted on that stage, both a sensual woman and a kind nun, both sides of her life, as it were. She performed so well that everyone began referring to the building as the Vivian Vance Playhouse. The town recognized her gift and welcomed her. They even organized a benefit performance just to raise funds so she could travel to New York to study acting. She performed a small revue in which she sang My Man and became a star in her local town. All the things she had been warned against doing were now the very things that provided her with a future. With $50 and one suitcase full of dreams, she boarded a train to New York. She worked as a waitress during the day and auditioned at night. Rejection was a repeated experience. She frequently went without food just to save subway fare, but she did not quit. And eventually, in 1932, she got a chorus part in Music in the Air, a Broadway show that played for 2 years. Her time had arrived. Gradually, folks started to pay attention to the way she walked, the way she spoke, and particularly how humorous she was. Step by step, the chorus girl was evolving into something greater. In 1937, she received a last-minute telephone call to fill in for someone in a play titled Hoey, For What? And she went on to do more than 200 performances. That resulted in her largest stage appearance in 1941, when she played a hit musical titled Let's Face It with Danny Kaye and Eve Arden. The play lasted for 547 performances, and Vivian had finally established herself. But the agony didn't fade. She continued to move forward even when it pained her. She later joined another play called Over 21, which led her all the way to Africa in World War II. She was no longer at the back of the scene. She was the lead, but her life was in shambles. She married her first husband, Joseph Danek Jr., at age 19, hoping marriage would offer a more lenient home. It didn't. He departed town after 3 years, and she was left behind once again. She then married another man in 1941, an actor named Philip Ober. That marriage was longer, but even more agonizing. Ober resented his wife being greater than him. He turned violent. He beat her. He made her feel tiny. Even Lucille Ball, her eventual co-star, noticed it and spoke out against it. But the hurt went deep. Vivian continued to act, but on the inside, she was shattering. In 1945, while traveling with a play titled The Voice of the Turtle, Vivian cracked up. She explained it baldly. "Let's face it, I cracked up." She was losing her mind. The burden of childhood, the stress of stardom, the hurt of her marriage, it all came crashing down. She began therapy and remained in it for years. She gradually rebuilt herself. That experience transformed her. She started going to psychiatric hospitals, not as a celebrity, but as an individual who understood the hurt. She did not attempt to mend people. She merely told them that they were not alone. She continued acting. Her greatest triumph on stage was still, let's be honest. But behind the clap was 1,000 lost opportunities. Following a revival of The Cradle Will Rock in 1947, she went to California to attempt film work. It didn't happen. She appeared in only 2 movies: The Secret Fury in 1950 and The Blue Veil in 1951. One producer asked her to do a gaudy striptease routine in a musical. She refused. That part eventually starred Mary Martin. She also lost a role in Carousel due to a choreographer who wanted her dismissed as revenge. The roadblocks accumulated. Nonetheless, she did not give up. In 1951, something historic occurred in television. Vivian Vance, age 42, was selected to portray Ethel Mertz in I Love Lucy. Decades went by, and folks thought she'd signed some weird contract, claiming that she would have to gain 15 pounds so that Lucille Ball would be made glamorous in comparison. But no such contract was ever signed. It was all a joke. Lucille created it herself for a party, pinning such ridiculous stipulations as gaining 5 pounds every week and never funnier than herself. But people listened, and the falsehood endured for years. Actually, Vivian's weight just fluctuated over the years. She was constantly dieting. And though Lucy might have wished to appear more lovely alongside her, there never was an actual contract. Nevertheless, that fiction became one of Hollywood's best-known legends. Vivian wasn't an anonymous performer prior to I Love Lucy. She had been on Broadway since the late 1920s. She even substituted for the great Ethel Mertz in 2 Cole Porter musicals. By the early 1940s, she was getting her own starring roles. In 1951, she was acting in a play in La Ola, California, when Desi Arnaz and producer Jess Onheimer spotted her on the stage. They immediately hired her. But when Lucy learned about it, she was not pleased. She addressed Vivian and said, "You can't play Ethel. You're my age. You have the same hair color. You're too pretty." So in order to correct that, the crew had Vivian wear clothes that were too small and used makeup to make her look ungainly. They wanted her to look older and less glamorous so Lucy could be the center of attention. When she first met her on-screen husband, William Froley, for the first time, she was unaware who he was. She looked at Desessi and said, "Who's that old man there?" And when she was informed he would be her husband, she laughed and replied that he resembled her grandfather more. Froley overheard this and never forgave her. He did not like her from day one. That disdain never dissipated, and their actual tension was a part of the show. But she didn't only disagree with Froley. Lucy and Vivian disagreed at times, too. One time, during Lucy's pregnancy, she lashed out at Vivian for being late. Vivian retorted with something so biting that Lucy couldn't help but chuckle. Ever since, they gelled as comedy teammates. Their battles could have been real, but they made magic on television. In February of 1954, Vivian made history. She was the first woman in history to ever receive an Emmy for Best Supporting Actress. She had won for playing Ethel in 1953, and the award created a whole new category in the Emmys. It showed how much side characters mattered. Vivian was also nominated for her third Emmy in 1954, her fourth Emmy in 1956, and her fifth Emmy in 1957. But despite the award and recognition, she felt trapped. She used to be a glamorous Broadway actress, but now everyone just recognized her as Ethel, the plain landlady. The Emmy turned her into a legend, but it also kept her in a role that she worried would never, ever be over. Money turned into a struggle, too. In Season 1, she was only making $280 a week, the same as Frawley, but by Season 6, she was pulling in $7,500 a week. That wasn't chance. It was because she had an assertive agent who insisted on better wages each and every year. It was not common at that time for women to request increased pay. But Vivian did not give up. When she was hired for the Lucy show in 1962, she demanded even more. She required her name first, nicer clothes, and greater input on how things were done. She knew her value and was not afraid to demonstrate it. Perhaps the most popular scene in I Love Lucy was in 1952. It was the chocolate factory scene where Lucy and Ethel worked on a conveyor belt filling chocolates. Everyone was laughing as they panicked as the chocolates accelerated. But behind the scenes, it wasn't humorous at all. The machine would break down and accelerate erratically. Vivian kept having to eat chocolate repeatedly for every take. By the end of it, she was ill to her stomach. What appeared to be pure comedy didn't come without a painful price. In the same year, Lucy appeared in the iconic Vitamia Tagamine commercial sketch. It appeared hilarious. Lucy stumbling drunk on a health elixir and slurring her words, but this was not acting. The prop elixir was real and contained 23% alcohol. The actors didn't know how powerful it was. Lucy had to take spoonful after spoonful, and by the last takes she was tipsy. She was barely standing up, but those were turned into TV gold. It revealed how early television occasionally pushed performers to unsafe extremes. Vivian's Emmy Award in 1953 was the world to her, yet inside, she was in pain. She delivered a gorgeous speech expressing gratitude to Lucy for her friendship and loyalty, but deep down she suffered from being second best all the time. She was talented, attractive, and had a singing voice that could fill a theater. But the world viewed Ethel only. She received her Emmy at age 44, but rather than new roles, she simply continued to be offered the same kind of parts. The very award that crowned her also imprisoned her. In 1954, Vivian was finally able to expose her singing abilities. She studied opera and possessed a voice to match Broadway performers. She insisted on Ethel-centered shows like Ethel's Birthday, wherein she was finally able to sing. Her voice was lovely, trained, strong, and full of grace.